Hey everybody, this is Kennedy Hawk, and we are finally back to doing Marvel Champions pack reviews. I missed out on reviewing Groot and Rocket's deck individually, so I will upload videos on those later. I recorded them at one point, and then they got lost in a tragic hard drive destruction. But got TTS back installed now, and I can review the latest two packs, Star-Lord and Gamora. So this video is going to be all about the What Could Go Wrong Star-Lord attitude, and we're going to review Star-Lord's kit and all the cards that come in his pack and wrap it up with a sort of grade for this pack. Do I think this is a great pack? Spoiler alert, I think it's awesome, but we'll see why as I go through all the different cards. So let's get kicked off by talking about Peter Quill, Star-Lord, the identity card. So Star-Lord has 6 hand size, 10 hit points. Peter Quill has 6 hand size, 10 hit points, 3 recovery. The setup ability, search your deck and discard pile for a copy of Element Gun upgrade and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. We'll go look at that Element Gun here in a second, but he has the ability Smooth Talker. Choose a card in your hand, swap that card with the top card of your deck. Ultimately, this is like a lot worse than Captain Marvel's ability to just draw a card, right? You're not guaranteed to get a better card because you don't always know what's on top of your deck. But I think that's the important part here. The Smooth Talker part is now you do know what's on top of your deck. I've had a lot of fun with this ability with the Hulk ally, just being able to put whatever card I need on top, or to guarantee I don't have a mental resource up there. And we're going to see as we go through Star-Lord's deck, there's some other cards that discard cards, so you might be able to swap for resource types. And as we get more things that care about what's on the top of your deck, this ability is going to become more and more powerful to combo and like really play around. But for now, it can kind of take a card that like maybe you don't want to spend it as a resource. Let's put that on top of my deck for next turn and spend something else as that resource instead. And that works out pretty well. So on the Star-Lord side, he has 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 defense, the Guardian trait, and the ability each ally you control gains the Guardian trait. His other ability is What Could Go Wrong? Interrupt. When you play a card from hand, deal yourself 1 face-down counter card. Reduce the resource cost of that card to that. Reduce the resource cost to play that card by 3. Limit once per round. Hand size 5, hit points 10 again. So this is pretty sweet. So you can take a card that normally costs 4, 5, maybe even 6, and reduce that down to 1, 2, or 3. That means you're going to be able to play a lot of expensive cards in your deck, but there's a little bit of a risk-reward mechanic going on here, just like we saw with Scarlet Witch, just like we saw with She-Hulk. To get that steep discount, you're going to be paying a pretty hefty price. We all know how bad Heroic Mode is, so if you plan on saying what could go wrong every round, the answer is a lot of things. A lot of things can go wrong. So we'll talk more about that later, but I've had the best luck with this ability when I don't plan to use it every round. I don't just cram my deck full of cards that cost 3 or more. I might bring 10 3 or more costing cards instead of the typical 5 that I would bring, but I don't plan to play one of those cards every round. I just want to have options, and when I do play them, I make sure that I really am prepared to deal with this ability. So let's go ahead and look at the rest of Star-Lord's kit, because there's obviously going to be a lot of high-costing cards, because he has this great economy just on his hero side naturally. So Element Gun. We're going to get one of these at setup. Restricted, tech weapon, max 2 restricted cards per player. Hero action, exhaust Element Gun and spend 1 resource of any type, deal 3 damage to an enemy. This tech gains piercing. So these are pretty cool. You can get 2 of them out there, and then for 2 resources you can be doing 6 damage around, and you can be getting rid of Tough. That is pretty awesome. Unfortunately, it costs 3, so there's a pretty big resource investment up front, and then you're paying resources turn after turn. Ultimately, I do really like this card. I'm not super gung-ho on the flavor of it. I mean, I get it. It's Element Gun. It's supposed to control like 4 elements or something like that. And you spend 1 resource of any type, and there's 4 resource types, I guess, if you include wilds. So there's a little bit of theme there. But for the most part, it's just like spend money, do damage, you know. Nothing fancy to represent the elements coming out of the gun. So I was a little bit disappointed in the theme, but still a great card. Great card to get on setup. Obviously costs a lot more than Mjolnir and Captain America's shield. And isn't necessarily as integral to his entire kit as those 2 cards are, but still a really powerful card, even if you end up using it as a resource in that first round. But definitely play that. I don't always use What Can Go Wrong to play it. Sometimes I just play it and then pay the extra resource in my hand to kill something and move on. But I think that it can be a pretty good opening round. It's kind of nice that it guarantees you're going to have something 3 cost or more to what could go wrong with, especially because there's 2 of you these in your deck, so Ultron can only steal 1. Pretty nice. Going through the other upgrades, we have Jet Boots. Star-Lord gains Aerial. That's going to be really important in his pack. We'll see later. Hero Interrupt. When Star-Lord would take any amount of damage, exhaust jet boots. Prevent one of that damage for each face down encounter card in front of you. So he's got lots of things in his kit that might not cost 3, but get you an advantage for having that face down encounter card. And you're going to need that because that face down encounter card is a really big penalty. So the more things you can get out there and the more events you have in your hand to take advantage of it, that's when you want to strike with what can go wrong and just blow up the board. All right. Leader of the Guardians is a unique upgrade. Each Guardian character you control gets +1 thwart. That's going to be really good. Star-Lord's going to be up to a 3 thwart base character. So in Justice, Star-Lord can get to 4 thwart without like any fancy events, just with 2 upgrades in play. That's pretty awesome. Definitely another good target for his ability, but I would also warn you, only do that if you have all those Guardians characters out there and you can reduce everything to 0. This is really nice that he gives each ally you control the Guardian trait. That means if you play Maria Hill or whoever, they're going to become a Guardian instantly, and they're going to gain the advantage of this ability. So when playing that with Star-Lord, it basically says all of your allies get +1 thwart, unless you have allies that for some reason can't gain a trait, which doesn't exist. So don't worry about that. All right, Star-Lord's helmet. While you are in hero form, you get +1 hand size for each face down encounter card in front of you, to a maximum of +3 hand size. So that means if you've got 3 face down encounter cards, you could have a hand size of 8. That's bonkers. One little rules caveat here: when you're drawing cards to fill up to your hand size, if you deck out and have to deal yourself another encounter card, that's not going to count for Star-Lord's helmet. I believe that you check your hand size at the beginning of drawing up, and then you draw up to that number. So if you had 2 cards face down in front of you, you would draw up to 7. If that decked you out, you wouldn't get to go to 8. You'd still be stuck at 7. But still a really good card. Really cheap for what it gets. So once you get this out there, that could be a nice way to get Star-Lord to this 6-card hand size. But still, even with Star-Lord's helmet out there, it's probably not worth seeing what could go wrong every turn. I'm going to emphasize that about 1,000 times in this video. All right, let's move on to Star-Lord's events. So Star-Lord has 3 copies of Daring Escape. Deal yourself 1 face down encounter card, ready your hero, and draw a card. So this is another way that you can get an extra encounter card in front of you. So let's say you use Star-Lord's ability to play Element Gun, and you have this helmet in play, and then you play Daring Escape. Bingo bango, you now have a hand size of 7 at the end of the turn. And you readied your hero and drew a card. So let's erase that, and let's say you used his ability to play Leader of the Guardians, go thwart for 3, use this, go thwart for 3 again. You do have 2 face down encounter cards, but you, for just the cost of playing this card and playing this card and paying 0 additional resources, just thwarted for 6. So that's pretty dang good. You get 3 of these, so you really have to use these wisely. You're going to get them very often in your deck, and it can be very tempting to just Daring Escape 3 times, which is totally doable. In Aggression and in Justice, you can get to 3 attack or 3 thwart very easily, and you can just Daring Escape your way through a stage of a villain very quickly. But if you don't win that round, you're going to be suffering through the next villain phase with 2 to 3 encounter cards in front of you and not much to help stop them. So be prepared. All right, 5 more events to look at. We have 2 copies of Gutsy Move, Thwart, Hero Action, remove 2 threat from a scheme, remove 2 additional threat from that scheme for each face down encounter card in front of you. And this has no limit, so if you use Star-Lord's ability and all 3 copies of Daring Escape, Gutsy Move can now remove 10 threat from a scheme. That's pretty bonkers for 2 cost. Again, 2 for 2 isn't great, so you're going to want to have at least 1 encounter card in front of you before you pay the cost of Gutsy Move. 2 for 4, I mean, that's on par with 4 Justice. 2 for 6, that's stellar. So it's a little bit low on the normal curve, and then a little bit high if you take that risk. And you get that reward, but the risk is great. So don't let me fool you. The risk is very great. I would say the first 5 games I played with Star-Lord, I was using that ability every turn, and I was losing every game. And then when I took a step back, decided not to go balls to the walls, blow all the things up constantly, I found that I could have a very steady play pattern with Star-Lord that doesn't involve taking more risk than he can manage. All right. Next ability, Sliding Shot event. Play only if you control an element gun. So you do need that element gun out there for this 1 card. Unfortunately, again, it has nothing to do with the theme of element gun. Pay resources, do damage. So it's an attack, deal 5 damage to an enemy, deal 2 additional damage to that enemy for each face down encounter card in front of you. So again, no limit. There are no limits on these cards. What we learned in the past in Marvel Champions is when they don't put limits on cards that can just rack up damage, like I think it's Giant Growth and Ant-Man. You can just go bonkers with these. So look for amazing opportunities to play Sliding Shot. So I'm talking about using Star-Lord's ability and playing these three, maybe playing Hercules and playing two of these. You can get Sliding Shot to be really, really expensive. It's important to note that here, when you play a card from your hand, you deal yourself the encounter card to reduce the costs. That's before you resolve this effect. So if you use Star-Lord's ability to play this, you're going to be hitting for at least 7. But I've hit for upwards of, I think I hit for 11 once. I haven't drawn the perfect hand to hit for 13, but if I did, I'd be feeling pretty good. And this works really well. All these, when encounter cards are in front of you, work well in the expert mode of a couple of the Red Skull villains. They work well against Mutagen Formula, that turn that you get dealt 3 face down encounter cards when you flip Green Goblin. Bingo bango, all of a sudden your Sliding Shot is just raffle stomping things. So get ready to have fun with these cards. It doesn't require you to exhaust the gun or anything, so you could technically play 2 of them if you got enough money. And you might if you want to see what could go wrong. Alright, 2 more cards in his kit, and they are expensive as well. So Bad Boy, we talked about this one in our spoiler video. When you take any amount of damage from a villain's attack, discard this card, prevent all that damage, change to Alter Ego form, and draw 2 cards. Unfortunately, it costs you 3. That being said, if you have 4 encounter cards in front of you and a villain attacks you really big, most encounter cards while you're in Alter Ego form aren't going to make you lose, except the ones that make the villain scheme, and if those are going to make him scheme in hero form anyway, you're probably going to be living in a rough world. So if you're getting hit by an attack and you need to flip, do it when you have a ton of encounter cards in front of you, because if those minions have Quick Strike, or if they have When Revealed that only hit your hero, you don't got to worry about it. So I really love the card, the Bad Boy. It is a little bit expensive for its ability, but you're going to get 2 of those cards later, so it can lead to really explosive turns. Maybe you do this, you draw into Daring Escapes, you draw into an extra Sliding Shot, and then all of a sudden you're just doing monstrous amounts of damage in one turn. Nova Prime, one of my favorite heroes of Marvel, Richard Rider. 2 thwart, 3 attack on a 5 cost ally with 3 health, so 9 damage for 5, kinda lame. 6 thwart for 5, also kinda lame. He has the Aerial and the Nova Corps trait. Response: after you play Nova Prime from hand, defeat a non-elite minion. That's really good. That's going to kill most of the minions in the game. Even Scorpion's not elite from the Mess of Things power set. So if you can get rid of a minion that's got like 6 or 7 health or has guard or patrol, this is going to be totally worth it. And if you use Star-Lord's ability and only have to pay 2 for him, he's super worth it. At the same time, like, you're going to have to depend on that minion being in play, because just paying him for 5 is not going to be a feel-good turn. It's not great. Even if you're using Star-Lord's ability and playing him for 2, if there's no minion in play, you're going to be shortchanged for what an typical ally or signature ally could do. So he's got a cool ability. I like it. I wish he did something like he dealt a face down encounter card and reduced his cost, or something like that. But I think ultimately he's an ally. Allies are good. We saw with Rocket and Groot, not having signature allies can make the pre-constructed decks really difficult, and we don't have that problem with this Star-Lord leadership deck. Alright, so let's go on to those great aspect cards and see what's going on in that realm. Alright, so let's get to looking at those aspect cards. Like I mentioned, Star-Lord comes with leadership cards. That being my favorite aspect, there's going to be a lot of cards I really want to talk about in this pack. So we're going to go through cards here in the bottom row from left to right. We're going to start with a basic upgrade that comes in Star-Lord's pack. It is a weapon upgrade, so that is great for things like Mean Swing and things that tutor off weapons. Hero action attack. Discard Pulse Grenade and choose an enemy. Discard the top 2 cards of the encounter deck. Deal 1 damage to the chosen enemy for each boost icon discarded this way. So that usually could probably top off at like 6 damage. It could also hit for 0, so it's a little bit hefty of a cost for 2. Going to work really well with Spider-Woman and really well against high boost icon villains. This is going to be kind of villain dependent, but also if you need weapons in your deck for other reasons, this could be a good reason to include this. Note this is a weapon that is not restricted, so you could put this out there just as a mean swing generator or whatever you need for weapon purposes, and it could work out. So pretty cool basic card to kick off this cycle. We've got one other weapon upgrade in here, and this is in the leadership aspect, the Laser Blaster. Tech weapon attached to a Guardian ally, max 1 per ally. Attached ally gets +1 attack, and the attack gains overkill. That's pretty awesome, especially with Star-Lord, because he's going to make every ally a Guardian ally. So you can now give all those great aggressive like leadership allies +1 attack and overkill. So we're looking at things like Goliath, Giant Man, amazing targets for Laser Blaster. Really excited about that. We've got a couple repeats here, so we've got 2 copies of Power of Leadership, 2 copies of Get Ready from the core set. Obviously going to be very good for tempo and for getting those allies out. Surprisingly, we do not have the basic resources, so these 2 copies of Power of Leadership are only going to trigger about 8 cards, 9 cards in his deck, so I'd almost rather with these have just been 2 of the basic resources, but not all of them. But they work out, and they are there in Star-Lord's deck. Alright, so next we're going to look at 2 basic supports. We have Nowhere. Play only if your identity has the Guardian trait. Increase your ally limit by 1. So it's like a Triskelion, but for Guardians only. Costs 1 more, but it's basic. And after a player plays a Guardian ally, exhaust Nowhere. That player draws a card. So this is unique. You're not going to be able to have all 4 people have a copy of Nowhere. But at the same time, if you play this with Star-Lord, when you play Maria Hill, she's going to gain the Guardian trait before she comes into play. So you'll draw a card from Maria Hill, get to draw an extra card from Nowhere. Seems really, really, really good and really, really awesome, especially with Star-Lord. So I've had a lot of fun with this. I think just about every content creator and non-content creator that exists has a Star-Lord leadership deck on Marvel CDB, and they all think they're the best. They probably are all the best because Star-Lord leadership decks are just super fun, and this is a key card to making them so fun. Alright, next we got the CITT. It is a vehicle, obviously a cool looking spaceship. Hero action. Exhaust CITT and spend 2 resources of any type. Ready a Guardian character. So you're probably going to use this to ready Star-Lord, hopefully after you have Leader of the Guardians out. But this can also be used for allies. It's a little bit expensive, but it stays out there forever. So if you think about including Tenacity in your deck, that's going to cost 3 to ready your character. If you play CITT, once you've ready your character twice, you've spent the same 6 as Tenacity. After that, you're getting a discount compared to Tenacity. Now, Tenacity is not like the best card in the world, but also a more resource-efficient way to sort of get the same ability. One cool thing here is you can ready any Guardian character, so you could ready someone else's Guardian character, if that helps. And it has a wild resource, so if you're looking to just stack wild resources in your deck for some reason, Hulk, Doctor Strange, whoever, just one more way to get one more wild resource into your deck. Next, let's look at the 4 allies. We've got 4 new allies in this deck beyond just Nova Prime. So we've got 2 cost Cosmo with 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 health. Interrupt. When Cosmo attacks or thwarts, name a card type. Then discard the top card of a deck. If that card is of the name type, Cosmo does not take consequential damage for this use. So this can be great if you know what's coming up in the encounter deck. It can also be great against Red Skull, who's got a side scheme deck, or with Doctor Strange, who has an invocation deck. So always look for those like special side decks, because that's going to make Cosmo really powerful. But also if you sort of know what the villain deck is used for, Cosmo can be just this great source of ping damage or slow threat removal. Also, he's a 2-cost ally, so you pretty much just include him in every deck ever, because 2-cost allies are really, really good. Brokenly good. Alright, next we have a 3-cost ally, Adam Warlock, with 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 3 health. Seems kind of lame so far, but if we read his ability, he is Aerial Mystic. Response, after Adam Warlock attacks or thwarts, so after he activates other than defending, discard 1 card at random from your hand. If that card's printed resource has Physical, remove 3 threat from a scheme, Energy, heal 3 damage from an identity, Mental, deal 3 damage to an enemy, or Wild, choose one of the above. That's really awesome. So he's going to get some sort of bonus no matter what you discard, as long as there's damage on an identity, an enemy to damage, or a threat to remove from the scheme, you're going to be good to go. What's really cool about this is it's a random card from your hand, but if you activate Adam Warlock when there's only 1 card left in your hand, you can sort of determine what that's going to be. And this is another reason you might want to exchange cards at the top of your deck using Peter Quill. Let's say you have 1 card left in your hand, and it's a physical resource, but there's no threat in the scheme. Well, maybe you want to use a mental instead. It is a little bit interesting that the energy icons don't necessarily match up with their typical abilities or aspects. Usually we're looking for physical energy and aggression, and that would be damage dealing stuff, but here it's removing threat. And a lot of times we have mental energy and justice, but usually that's threat removal, and here it's dealing damage. So that can be a little bit interesting and neat if you wanted to run Adam in a deck that can have multiple aspects like Spider-Woman. Alright, Beta Ray Bill. We've got 1 thwart, 3 attack, 5 cost ally with 4 health. We know 5-cost allies are expensive, but we also know that they're super fun. So, response, after Beta Ray Bill attacks and defeats a minion, remove 2 threat from the main scheme. That's pretty sweet. So that is getting around things like patrol and stuff like that, right? Because it's not thwarting the main scheme. It's just removing the threat. And he's going to be, you know, swinging at a lot of minions, right? He's got 3 attack. That can kill several small minions in the game. You can even sort of do ping damage on them with other allies and then use Beta Ray Bill to finish them off. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you used all 4 of his attacks to defeat minions, you'd get 12 damage out of him and 8 threat removal for 5 cost. That's a lot. That's like 20 things you're doing for $5 you're spending. I'd call that a pretty good ratio. So I'm pretty happy with that. Even if you're using the jump block at the end, it's going to be pretty good. It's kind of funny that Adam has the aerial trait and Beta Ray Bill, who's literally flying through space, is not aerial. But it is what it is. Really cool to see another Asgard character in there to work with Thor, and I'm pretty excited for people to try out Beta Ray Bill because I think he's super fun. All right, Yondu. 4 cost, 2 thwart for 1 consequential, 1 attack for no consequential. I think I have seen this question about a dozen times on Facebook and Discord. Man, Yondu's stats suck. Why does he cost so much? It's because there's not that consequential there, right? Black Cat has that ability, but she has 1 attack and not 2 thwart, and Yondu gains range, so he can even ping people with Retaliate, and he's available to every character instead of just Spider-Man. So having no consequential damage on any of your ally stats is bonkers good. That means you can load things like in this deck, Laser Blaster onto him. Inspired, you can probably get him up to 4 attack, I think, without having to worry about consequential damage. You can just ping for 4 turn with doing nothing. That's pretty awesome, is what I'm going to say. And even more awesome if you can use them over and over again with things like Get Ready. So Yondu is super fun to build around. I've seen people build a Spider-Man deck that uses Yondu and Black Cat and just suits them all up and just sends them after the villain, and it's super fun to play. So definitely check it out. 4 pretty all-star allies. If I had to pick my favorite one, it would be Adam Warlock. Really like him in the comics, so a little unfair for me to say that, but also I think his ability is a fun ability to build around, which leadership hasn't really had that before. We haven't had the build with this resource type to gain this cool thing ability within leadership, so I'm super excited that we're finally getting that in the best aspect of all. Okay, 2 events to go through, and these are the leadership events that are in Star-Lord's deck. So we have Blaze of Glory, max 1 per round. Each Guardian character gets +2 thwart, +2 attack. At the end of the phase, deal 1 damage to each Guardian character. So this is really cool. Sort of showing the risk-reward of Star-Lord. When I saw this art, I was really excited. I thought it was going to be a team-up card. It is not, but that's okay. It's still a really good card. For 2 cost, you can basically do a double lead from the front, but only for Guardians. And at the end of the turn, they're going to take damage. But you know what's really cool with Star-Lord, right, is when you're in hero form, everybody's got the Guardian trait. So let's say you play 6 Avengers, they're all Guardians. If you flip down, they lose the Guardian trait. And guess what? Now they don't have to take damage at the end of the turn. So you can kind of cheat that damage out and not even have to pay attention to it. And that's like a super fun way to play with Blaze of Glory. It's also really great for finishing, right? If you have a lead from the front and a Blaze of Glory, you can give everybody +3/+3. If they're Avengers, somehow you can use Avengers Assemble and just go wild pants. And he can reduce the cost of that. So it's just wombo combo central. You can tell why I like Star-Lord. Finally, we have the last 4 events here, and then we've got 2 more cards to go over, but these 4 events all deal with the aerial trait. So let's start with Air Supremacy with an awesome art of Nova on here. It has the aerial and tactic trait, so no attack trait, no reductions from that. Hero action, choose up to X enemies, where X is equal to the number of aerial characters you control. Deal 3 damage to each chosen enemy. That's bonkers. Like, you can't get a ton of aerial allies out there right now in leadership. Right, we've got Adam Warlock, I think we've got Falcon, we've got Star-Lord himself would count, because it's not allies, it's just characters. And you could even play this in Spider-Woman or Doctor Strange or Iron Man. You can get lots of different aerial heroes to go with these other aerial characters. Sky Cycle can also give aerial to an Avengers ally, so you could get up to 5 or 6 aerial characters in play. And then for 2 costs, you could do, 15 to 18 damage around the board. Now you're going to need 5 to 6 different targets to be able to hit them all. But at the same time, that's like a super fun AoE style blow 'em up deck, especially in multiplayer. I've had a lot of fun playing it. I think it's only more powerful the more aerial characters we have at our disposal. And I'm super excited to see leadership get something that is not an attack. I mean, they've only gotten 1 attack before, so I guess I shouldn't complain about that. but damage from events that's not an attack is a big deal. It gets around guard, gets around stunned. Those are things that normally we have to worry about. So I'm really happy to see Air Supremacy show up in leadership. There's one more leadership card. It looks like I skipped over here, and it is Target Practice. When an ally with a weapon upgrade makes an attack, discard Target Practice. That ally gets +2 for this attack. So you're going to want to use that with Laser Blaster, quite obviously. Really, really good. It is one-time use only, but 0 cost, or 1 true cost, I guess, for 2 attack is not too bad at all in the damage to resource ratio. It is a support, so you can play this like way ahead of time. It doesn't have to be in your hand when you want to play it, and it's not forced. So you can even save this or save 3 copies of this for when an ally makes an attack with an upgrade. And especially with Laser Blaster, right, that ally is getting overkill. If you had all 3 of these out and Laser Blaster, you're giving an ally +7 in overkill for the turn. Pretty gnarly. All right, 3 other events that deal with aerial. We have 1 for each trait. So we have Dive Bomb. Play only if your identity has the aerial trait. Hero action attack. Womp womp. Poor Air Supremacy. Deal 7 damage to an enemy and deal 1 damage to each other enemy. So this is kind of like Giant Stomp from Ant-Man. Can't really be cheated by Miss Marvel yet, because Miss Marvel doesn't have a way to go aerial, but maybe someone can like fastball special her someday and she'll be able to, so you can't embiggen this. But it is an attack that hits multiple enemies, so that's really exciting. And the resource ratio isn't like horrible, so I'm not too upset about it. It is a little bit expensive. A 4 cost attack is pretty much going to take up your whole hand. So you can deal 7 to the boss and kill every Ultron drone that exists. That seems pretty fun. Combos well with Hall of Heroes, but again, it's going to be limited to those identities that can get aerial. So we're pretty limited in who can use it, and luckily they have Captain Marvel in there who can get aerial, so there's some good theme in the card art going. Ever Vigilant. This is one of the ones that I've liked really well. Play only if your identity has the aerial trait. Ready your hero and remove 2 threat from the main scheme. It's not a thwart action, so you can get around patrol. You can't get around Crisis, because Crisis isn't worded that you can't thwart against the main scheme. You can't remove threat from the main scheme. But you could still use this to ready your hero. So a 2 cost card that can ready any character that has aerial, or any identity that has aerial, I guess, is pretty good. And being able to remove 2 threat on top of that is even better, right? 2 threat for one of those resources is worth it in Justice, which is the aspect that's good at removing threat. So if you're in the aspect that has the least thwarting cards out there, protection, you're pretty happy about any threat removal cards that come your way. So super thumbs up for Ever Vigilant. The only downfall of that is almost all the characters that can go aerial are really, really good at thwarting. So you don't need a ton of extra threat removal with those characters. You need it with characters like Hulk, characters that can't go aerial. So hopefully we get some of that in the future, but I still think this is a super fun card. All right, and we have Agile Flight. Play only if your identity has the aerial trait. Remove a total of up to 5 threat from among schemes as you choose. This one I'm not so excited about. I really liked that ability in Wasp, especially in multiplayer, but it was nice because it was free, just in her stats. Paying 2 for 4 Justice to remove 4 seems a lot better to me than paying 3 for 5. Your ratio for that last bit of threat isn't that great. That being said, this can still be really good in solo if you have a character that just inherently has aerial. When you start Expert Claw, right, 2 side schemes start in play, it's a pain to like waste that 1 extra threat removal from 4 Justice and not hit a side scheme. Well, here you can spread that extra 2 threat removal to one of the other side schemes or the main scheme. So that's a little bit nicer. At the same time, still a little bit high costed for what it does. So my favorite 2 aerial cards are definitely Leadership and gross, I know, Protection. But I think all 4 of them are pretty exciting. So I hope we see more packs like this that have a sort of like really common, unique theme in the backup cards. And I think that like really seals this pack for me as a cool purchase and a cool suggestion for people to purchase when they're buying a Marvel Champions pack. The only thing that I don't like about this pack is the next 3 cards. So in our backups, not even in Star-Lord's deck, we got a reprint. We got Enhanced Awareness. And while I do like these drip resources, I like the Enhanced Physique, I like Enhanced Energy, I like Enhanced Reflexes, and Enhanced Awareness, I don't like that we're getting these as backup cards when we've already gotten them before. I would rather get backup cards that are like extra allies from this cycle or something else. I don't need that many copies of enhanced awareness, and there's nothing in his kit that like really requires a mental resource, so there's no like obvious reason to include it with people that might not have everything. So that was a little bit disappointing to me. I feel like I would have loved one more card that synergizes with guardians or extra guardian allies or something. But at the end of the day, for new players, if you don't have enhanced awareness from the last time it was released, this will be a nice boon to your collection, so can't complain about it too much. As a release for Star-Lord, I give it a grade A. I think he is a very fun hero. He might not be like the toppest of top tier heroes, but he can have some of the most fun turns in the game, and that's what's important to me in Marvel Champions, is theme and fun. And every time I'm playing Star-Lord, I'm having fun. It's not always fun to lose, but it's fun to go out with a bang when you're losing. And I have played many a 3-player games where I think I'm going to save the day with Star-Lord, I get one shot in the face, and then my team has to pull me out of it. And nothing says Peter Quill to me more than that scenario. So, that is my review of Peter Quill's pack. Tomorrow I'll record my video with my thoughts on Gamora. I've also played about 15 to 20 games with her, so I've got my thoughts written down on my notebook here. Just got to put the cards out on the table and really figure out what I exactly want to say about the next release, which, spoiler alert, I also loved. So, that wraps up Star-Lord's pack review. Hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to like and subscribe, and get out there and play some champions. Have a good day, everybody.